You felt the cold, damp weight of the air pressing against your skin as you dragged your feet across the carpet of withered leaves, stained faintly yellow by the ash beneath. Smoke's sharp, familiar edge hung thick and heavy among the gnarled, twisting trees surrounding you, blurring your vision like a veil woven from forgotten shadows. The distant crackling of fire crept silently into your senses, fogging your thoughts as a cold sweat slipped down your grimy forehead, beneath the coarse fabric, barely shielding you from the dragging night. You knew the embers needed tending, a slow, endless dance of stirring gray ashes and glowing coals, each movement deliberate, exact, driven by the necessity of keeping warmth alive in the heart of these haunted woods. Time slipped through your fingers, measured heavy enough to stifle even your breath. The cold air formed brief, fleeting clouds each time you exhaled, and within them danced a quiet dread whispered by age-old tales of vengeful spirits lurking in the burning charcoal's glow. Your fingers pressed against the rough, acrid ashes. The scent clung stubbornly to your skin, a sharp reminder of the peril woven into every second. Every instant carried the weight of silent threats, as if the glowing embers themselves might decide your fate. Quietly, without warning, the world seemed to contract around you, narrowed to the careful, repetitive tasks that tethered you to the fragile warmth fighting the creeping cold. The muted hues of the forest stretched endlessly, browns fading into charcoal grays, while invisible whispers slipped across the gnarled branches, threading the stillness with stories older than memory. Breaking a fragile spell, the sound like a secret shared too loudly in a crowded room. It was not so unlike the clatter of morning traffic far away, where life hurtles along with a noisy impatience you no longer belong to. You twisted the cold metal poker slowly in a practiced motion, shifting ashes as if stirring the fading embers was a kind of meditation, the kind of dull repetition that both numbed and comforted. Each movement was the same, yet somehow necessary, checking and rechecking, careful not to let the silent fire die. In the pulse of this repetitiveness, you found uneasy solace, a fragile moment suspended between fear and necessity. Then, faint but unmistakable, a stirring in the underbrush reached your ears, subtle, collective, like hushed voices held back by breath and shadow. The cold seemed to deepen suddenly, as if the forest itself pulled tighter around you. Something watched, waiting, unseen yet palpably near, shifting the air with a silent weight. A breath caught in your chest as the embers flickered hesitantly, casting long, trembling shadows along the twisted trunks, shadows that were not entirely your own. Before you could brace yourself, a whisper of movement rippled through the branches, low and urgent, like a secret shared between ghost and night. The fire's warmth faltered, A shiver passed through the heavy smoke, and you felt yourself teetering on a delicate edge, caught between the slow dying light and the gathering dark. Hey, before Morpheus takes you fully, why not check if you're still subscribed? For some, the button disappears, and I don't want you to miss the next bedtime stories. While you're here, leave a soft like a pillow's gentle weight. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Your quiet presence keeps this little sanctuary alive. Thanks for being part of it. You felt the cold, damp weight of the air pressing against your skin as you dragged your feet across the carpet of withered leaves stained faintly yellow by the ash beneath. Smoke's sharp, familiar edge hung thick and heavy among the gnarled, twisting trees surrounding you, blurring your vision like a veil woven from forgotten shadows. The distant crackling of fire crept silently into your senses, fogging your thoughts as a cold sweat slicked down your grimy forehead beneath the coarse fabric, barely shielding you from the dragging night. You knew the embers needed tending, a slow, endless dance of stirring gray ashes and glowing coals, each movement deliberate, exact, driven by the necessity of keeping warmth alive in the heart of these haunted woods. Time slipped through your fingers, measured only by the monotonous rhythm of your hands brushing through dust and smoke, punctuated by the oppressive silence heavy enough to stifle even your breath. The cold air formed brief, fleeting clouds each time you exhaled, and within them danced a quiet dread whispered by age-old tales of vengeful spirits lurking in the burning charcoal's glow. Your fingers pressed against the rough, acrid ashes. The scent clung stubbornly to your skin, a sharp reminder of the peril woven into every second. Every instant carried the weight of silent threats, as if the glowing embers themselves might decide your fate. Quietly, without warning, the world seemed to contract around you, narrowed to the careful, repetitive tasks that tethered you to the fragile warmth, fighting the creeping cold. The muted hues of the forest stretched endlessly, browns fading into charcoal grays, while invisible whispers slipped across the gnarled branches, threading stillness with stories older than memory. Every dry leaf beneath your boots crunched with the subtle menace of breaking a fragile spell, the sound like a secret shared too loudly in a crowded room. It was not so unlike the clatter of morning traffic far away, where life hurtles along with a noisy impatience you no longer belonged to. You twisted the cold metal poker slowly in a practiced motion, shifting ashes as if stirring the fading embers was a kind of meditation, the kind of dull repetition that both numbed and comforted. Each movement was the same, yet somehow necessary, checking and rechecking, careful not to let the silent fire die. In the pulse of this repetitiveness, you found uneasy solace, a fragile moment suspended between fear and necessity. Then, faint but unmistakable, a stirring in the underbrush reached your ears, subtle collective, like hushed voices held back by breath and shadow. The cold seemed to deepen suddenly, as if the forest itself pulled tighter around you. Something watched, waiting, unseen, yet palpably near, shifting the air with a silent weight. A breath caught in your chest as the embers flickered hesitantly, casting long, trembling shadows along the twisted trunks, shadows that were not entirely your own. Before you could brace yourself, a whisper of movement rippled through the branches, low and urgent, like a secret shared between ghost and night. The fire's warmth faltered, a shiver passed through the heavy smoke, and you felt yourself teetering on a delicate edge, caught between the slow dying light and the gathering dark. You don't move at first, choosing instead to sink deeper into the slow rhythm of your breathing. Each inhale sharp with the scent of burnt wood. Each exhale a plume of gray, fragile steam dissolving into the night. Your fingers remain poised above the ashes, the metal poker resting lightly, as if the sparks might leap at any moment and set your heart aflame. The forest around you breathes quietly, the shadows lengthening with a will of their own, curling like smoke tendrils, reaching for something just beyond reach. A thin breeze slips between the branches, stirring the edges of your worn cloak. The fabric grazes your skin, cool and rough, the texture a grim reminder of how far you've come. You feel the pulse of the earth beneath you, a muted, steady thrum that anchors you against the unsettling presence watching just out of sight. The crackling fire murmurs its soft warnings, a lullaby for the restless and the wary alike. Slowly, deliberately, you push the poker deeper into the coals, shifting their glowing essence from side to side. The heat warms your fingers ever so slightly through the thick glove. Tiny red eyes flicker in the depths beneath the ash, flickers that remind you how close the edge of survival can sometimes be. The smoke curls upward, obscuring your vision, but the texture of the air feels thicker now, as if secrets are crowding in unspoken. A sudden snap, something brittle underfoot, makes you still. Your breath catches again, sharper this time, bringing a cold prickle down your spine. The forest hushes a little, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath. You feel the weight of those unseen watchers pressing in, dense and mounting, like the slow pressure before a winter storm settles fully on frozen ground. Your hands, steady but tense, resume the slow task. Rake away the charcoal dust, separating the living fire from the ash bed. The faint warmth climbs the length of your arms, a stubborn ember of comfort. The scent of burning wood is thick, almost cloying, but also strangely sweet, grounding you amid the unsettling silence, pressing like velvet curtains. The sharp edge of fear softens, replaced by a brittle calm you have come to recognize, one that bids you move slowly, steadily, without haste. From farther off, the faintest trace of sound stirs your thoughts, the ever-so-soft rustle of leaves in a pattern too deliberate for wind. the faint scrape of something large moving low and slow. You do not dare to turn, not yet. Instead, you let your senses stretch outward, attuned to every small vibration carried by the night air. The fire crackles low again, tiny sparks flitting upward like hesitant fireflies, their brief glow swallowed quickly by the dark canopy. The eerie quiet folds back over you, settling like a thick wool blanket, muffling the world outside this small ring of flickering light. You trace the lines of the gnarled bark pressed into the trunks nearby, each ridge a silent witness to passing centuries. The cold twists at your fingers, creeping beneath the worn glove's seams. You rub your hands slowly together, coaxing warmth back to the skin underneath. The familiar ache, a reminder that life persists, even in the smallest flickers. Then, almost imperceptibly, a new sound rises above the whispers. The faint grind of stone shifting somewhere in the distance, uneven and deliberate. Your pulse quickens, but your body remains frozen, weighted against movement by the thick cloak of tension encasing you. The smoke swirls higher, revealing briefly shapes caught in its haze, unnatural outlines that dissolve as quickly as they appear, as if the forest itself breathed them away. You shift the poker once more, the metal scraping lightly against hardened clumps of ash. The fire redoubles its glow, a steady warmth pulsing softly now, fighting the cold fingers that reach for it. The embers crackle, a thread of sound, weaving through the silence, a fragile lifeline, binding you to the moment, to the flickering hope buried in these shadowed woods. Your eyes flick to the edge of the clearing, where the dark folds of forest gather, thick and impenetrable. There, a movement, a shadow detached from the rest, deliberate and slow, like a question hanging in the balance. You hold your breath, feeling the night press closer still, the firelight trembling in your hands, as if the difference between safety and the unknown depends on the next slow, imperfect breath. And then, just beyond the reach of the glow, the whispering silence breaks, a low, almost forgotten sound, not quite the crackle of fire, nor the stir of leaves, but something else entirely. It curls around your ears, a secret pulled tight between worlds, waiting for you to follow it deeper into the dark. You hold your breath, the whispered sound curling around your ears like a thin thread pulled taut between dusk and dawn. The forest seems to lean in, its breath mingling with the smoke as the embers pulse softly beneath your fingers, a stubborn heartbeat against the cold. The metal poker hesitates, poised mid-air above the ash, as if even the slightest disturbance might unravel the fragile spell holding the night at bay. A distant snap echoes again, a brittle fracture somewhere beyond the circle of firelight. Your eyes narrow, tracing the shifting shadows, but nothing stirs except for the slow dance of smoke curling upward. The pungent aroma of burnt wood and ash saturates the air, wrapping around your senses. heavy and unmoving. You shift your weight carefully, the dry leaves crunching faintly beneath your boots, each subtle sound amplified in the pressing quiet. You lean closer to the fire, the warmth an uneven pulse through your fingers. The glow paints shifting patterns on your skin, tracing an ancient rhythm in the low flicker of amber light. You feel a momentary calm, thin as a sigh, carried on the stale breath of the woods, before it slips away again. The night presses in, thick, dense, as if the shadows themselves are gathering strength, drawn by something unseen but deeply felt. Slowly, you push the poker deeper, separating chunks of charcoal from the ash bed. The embers glow deeper reds, flickering like the whispered remnants of a forgotten warmth, grasping for life within the smoky veil. The metal is a small, constant anchor against the wild. Your fingers tingle where the heat escapes, a brittle reminder that survival rests in these tiny efforts. The whisper of leaves becomes more deliberate now, a creeping cadence unlike the indifferent rustle of wind. Somewhere beyond your hearing, figures seem to move with a measured slowness, ghost-like and deliberate, threading through the trees like secrets unwilling to be told. The cold seeps deeper into your bones. Sharp and insistent, the fire's glow flickers uncertainly, trembling as if caught between defiance and surrender. You steady your breath, slow and steadying the rising tension. Your hands, warmed faintly by the stubborn coals, circle each piece of burning ember, coaxing life back into a fire that refuses to let go. The forest's breath brushes against your cloak like a warning, supple and cold, tugging at the frayed edges. You can almost feel the gaze of countless unseen eyes, threading through the dark with patient watchfulness. Even as the fire fights the night, your heart echoes the rhythm of the creeping cold, a slow, grinding pulse that fills every hollow and crevice. The scent of damp earth rises beneath the dry ash, steady and subtle, mixing with the sharp bite of smoke, anchoring you in this suspended place. You trace a line along the rough bark of a gnarled tree, feeling the ridges press into your palm, hard, ancient, and the faint tremor of life beneath its surface. The silence holds, fractured only by the crackling fire and the distant, deliberate crunch of shifting branches. Your gaze flickers to the edge of the clearing, where shadow pools gather, thick and dense. There, the landscape trembles with uncertainty, a darkness that seems almost alive, breathing slow and deep. The forest exhales a faint murmur, a voice muffled and low, threading through the air like a half-forgotten lullaby. You hunch closer to the fire, the heat a fragile barrier against the encroaching cold. The warm amber light dances, casting long, soft shadows that shimmer like phantoms across the undergrowth. Your fingers graze the ash once more, the texture gritty beneath your skin, a tactile rhythm that steadies your spinning thoughts. With each deliberate movement, you stave off the silent dread threading through the night. Suddenly, a soft vibration underfoot, a subtle, slow shift in the earth's pulse, catches your attention. A breath catches in your throat as a new sound arises, the faint scrape of stone against stone, uneven and deliberate, breaking the forest's quiet with a deliberate weight. Your pulse quickens, but your body remains motionless, anchored by the cold embrace of shadow and smoke. The embers flare briefly, sending soft sparks drifting upward like delicate fireflies. Their glow spills over the rough contours of your hands, dancing on the edges of shadow and light. The smoke thickens, weaving ribbons of gray that twist and curl into the darkness, swallowing shapes and forms as they rise. Beneath the shifting haze, you glimpse a figure, or perhaps only a trick of the firelight, lurking where the forest folds deep and impenetrable. Your breath comes slow and measured, a quiet anchor against the tightening weight pressing on your chest. The flickering firelight trembles in your grasp, cooling and warming, a fragile heartbeat in the shadows. The night folds around you like a heavy cloak, and the quiet scrape of stone ripples once more, closer now, deliberate and slow. You lift your eyes to the dark line where trees meet the sky, where shadow ebbs and flows with a life of its own. The whispering hush breaks with the faintest crack, a sound not quite natural, like a secret thread unraveling in the depths of the forest. A single, sharp shape cuts against the darkness, still and deliberate, waiting like a question left unanswered. Your heart holds its breath as everything tilts toward the edge of silence. And then, a slow, cold wind sweeps through the clearing, carrying with it a scent not entirely of this world, drawing you deeper into the waiting dark. You hold your breath as the whispering hush fractures once more, a low murmur threading through the smoke, a voice not quite human, more a shift in the air itself. The fire's glow pulses, wavering gently, casting a soft amber halo around your hands, warming skin chilled by the creeping night. Your fingers curl around the metal poker, steady, deliberate, an extension of your will to keep the fragile warmth alive in this weighty darkness. The forest leans in closer, branches bending slightly, as if drawn by an unseen force. The earth beneath your boots feels both solid and uncertain, a granular, shifting bed of ash and soil that quietly trembles with distant movements. Each exhale marks a tiny cloud of smoke dissipating in the cold air, fragile and ephemeral, much like your hold on this solitary vigil. A subtle scrape, slow and measured, echoes faintly from the shadows. Your gaze darts toward the edge of the clearing, where dense darkness pools thick and fast. Shapes flicker there, elusive and vague, painted briefly by the firelight before melting into blackness. You feel their presence as a pressure on your skin, an unseen weight harnessing the cold breath of the woods. You shift the poker once more, stirring embers that glow stubbornly beneath a thin layer of ash and charcoal. The heat seeps, a gentle pulse reaching your fingertips through the glove's worn weave. The scent of fresh smoke tangs sharp in your nostrils, mingling with damp earth and the subtle decay of rotting leaves. It is raw and honest, grounding in its tangible immediacy. A shiver pulls at your spine, not from cold, but from awareness. The air seems pregnant with expectation, as if the forest exhaled a breath held for centuries. You straighten slowly, senses stretching wide, reading the night's whispered script in sounds and silences, beneath and beyond the firelight's fragile circle. Crackling softens, and sparks drift lazily upward, tiny stars vanishing into the blackened canopy. Their brief dance feels like a language, a slow flicker between presence and absence. Your throat tightens with the weight of attention. Every nerve hums with the quiet insistence of waiting. Night exhales through rustling leaves, an ancient breath weaving between tree and stone. A cool gust slips in, weaving through your cloak's frayed edges, a brief caress that prickles cold along your bare neck. You sense more than see the brush of movement, a slow, deliberate slide between the trees, the sound of limbs scraping softly, rhythm deliberate, like the beat of a distant drum. The forest holds itself taut, bracing with you. You kneel, pressing a gloved hand to the rough bark of a nearby trunk, grounding yourself. Its texture is coarse, worn smooth here and there by time's invisible hand. Beneath your palm, faint vibrations hum through the wood, almost imperceptible, yet persistent, a quiet chorus of the living earth. The fire's warmth brushes across your cheek, a muted glow momentarily softening the raw edges of night. Your eyes trace the sprawling tangle of branches silhouetted against a slate sky, veins of ghostly, silver threading between black arms. The smoke curls upward in slow ballets, rising like whispered promises, twining through the air with steady grace. The scent is a mix of ash, earth, and something distant, perhaps the faintest trace of rain yet to come. From the periphery comes a low, almost imperceptible vibration beneath your feet. A slow tremble, like the heartbeat of the ground itself, pulsing faint and sure. You hold still, breath shallow but steady, tension threading through every muscle. The firelight falters, shadows stretching and shrinking in hesitant waves. A faint metallic scrape slides again, something dragging, slow and heavy, incongruous with the forest's natural rhythms. Your gaze tightens, shadows swelling at the edge of your vision, shapes solidifying and faltering with the flickering light. The air thickens, layering with invisible weight. You lean in toward the fire, willing its warmth stronger, coaxing the glowing coals too. A steady pulse beneath your poker's slow, deliberate strokes. The sensation is both a comfort and a lullaby, a fragile tether pulling you back from the precipice of the unknown. The ember's glow is steady now, a soft throb beneath your steady hands. From beyond the circle where light falters, a distinct silhouette emerges, slim, deliberate, cloaked in shadow, yet outlined faintly by the fire's amber breath. You do not look away. Your breath waits, a fragile rhythm connecting you to this slow, deliberate visitor. The forest itself seems to hold its breath alongside you, the night stretched taut with unspoken questions. The figure moves with creeping deliberation, folding into the clearing like a slow shadow slipping between worlds. Its presence ripples through the undergrowth, soft leaves yielding with restrained sound. The air chills even more deeply, a slow locking of breath and heartbeat. You feel your fingers tighten around the poker, sensing the fragile balance between warmth and cold, light and darkness. The forest's ancient hush presses heavier now, the watchful rhythm of night pulsing in your veins. A thin thread of fear, soft, steady, winds through your senses like a slow river beneath the quiet surface of the fire. And just as the figure steps fully into the faint circle of light, the fire flickers violently, casting sharp, silent truths of everything, fractured shadows that dance and shiver wildly before collapsing into stillness. The night holds you in its breathless grasp, waiting for your next move. Then, from the depths beyond the glow, a voice gathers, a single word, barely more than a breath, carried on the edge of the wind. It is neither a question nor a command, but a call stretched thin across the cold, an invitation woven of smoke and silence, reaching toward you with quiet inevitability. You remain rooted to the spot, the heat from the fire, a fragile pulse against the chill, gnawing at the edges of your skin. The figure, cloaked in shadow, pauses just beyond the flickering circle of light. You feel the tension coil in your chest, tight and slow, a rope pulled taut against the creeping cold. The metal poker in your hands rests lightly, almost forgotten, as you surrender to the stillness between heartbeats. A faint breeze stirs, threading through the twisted branches like a sigh, carrying with it a scent so subtle it might be imagined. The faintest trace of resin and damp stone, mingled with the sharp, bitter edge of smoke. The night deepens its hold, the stars obscured by a heavy blanket of cloud, their light muted, a distant echo of warmth you can no longer reach. Your breath forms soft clouds, rising and fading, tiny ghosts that waver in the dense air. The figure shifts, deliberate and slow, the sound of cloak brushing dry leaves, barely audible over the fire's low murmur. It moves just enough to blur the edges between shadow and light, leaving you to grasp for certainty in the shifting shapes. A strange quiet falls, thicker than before, pressing gently against your ears, the kind that dulls all sound except for the smallest movements, the occasional crack of a twig, the whisper of shifting ash underfoot. You lean closer to the fire, letting its warmth bleed into your chilled fingers. Stillness, deliberate and slow, a sacred rhythm tethering you to the present. Beyond the firelight, the forest seems to breathe with a life of its own. Branches creak softly, bending under the weight of unseen burdens. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying wood, woven through with the tangle of smoke and cold. Somewhere to your left, a leaf falls, slow, twisting through the air like a silent prayer, landing with a faint rustle that carves through the hush like a secret shared in confidence. You catch your breath, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath your boots, a quiet, steady rhythm that grounds you to this fragile moment. Your hands move of their own accord, tracing slow circles through the ashes, drawing warmth from glowing embers, as if willing the fire to hold on just a little longer. Each careful movement is a whispered promise that you will not surrender to the darkness without leaving a trace of light behind. The chilling impatience of the unseen watchers lingers like a low hum beneath the surface of sound. You sense more than hear the shifting forms just out of reach, their presence folding into the twisted trunks and tangled underbrush. The shadows lengthen and curl, weaving slow patterns that dance along the edges of your vision. A ritual performed in silence, as old as the woods themselves. A sudden, faint scrape fractures the air, a hesitant, dragging sound as something meets stone and wood in deliberate contact. Your pulse quickens, but your body moves not a fraction, caught in the stillness with eyes sharp and wide. The fire flickers uneasily, its warmth threatening to withdraw, shadows clawing greedily at the edges of the light, like fingers reaching for a fading breath. You tighten your grip on the poker, the cold metal a steady anchor. The figure steps forward, silhouette dissolving into soft contours carved by the fire's amber glow. You catch the glint of something, an object shaped by hands long lost to the night, a small, smooth stone cradled in a motion as slow and precise as the turning of the earth. The eyes behind the shadowed hood are hidden, but you feel their gaze, a quiet, patient invitation stitched into the fabric of the night. You close your eyes briefly, the heat from the coals pressing against your palms, a flickering warmth that hums through your veins. The air tastes of smoke and cold, carrying an ache that settles deep inside your chest, a mixture of dread and reluctant hope. When you open your eyes, the figure has not moved, but instead seems to merge with the shifting shadows, poised on a knife edge. between the world you know and the mysteries waiting beyond. A whisper rises again, carried on the dew-thick air. A single word, soft and fractured, like cracked glass beneath frozen water. It calls to you without urgency, a breath caught on the edge of something vast and unknowable. The forest leans closer still, as if to catch the answer you have yet to give. You shift your weight slowly, the crunch of your boots muted beneath the ash. Your hands, still wrapped around the poker, raise and fall in a measured rhythm, stirring the embers once more. The fire sighs, a quiet exhale that holds both the promise of warmth and the shadow of flame's end. Then, without warning, the ground trembles, a tremor rolling through the soil, subtle but insistent, as if the earth itself is toggling between patience and release. The trees sway gently, their branches brushing against one another in a sound like whispered secrets. Your breath freezes, suspended in the cooling air, as the fire's glow wavers one last time before steadiness returns. The figure tilts its head, a mimicry of curiosity or challenge that threads through your spine like a slow draft. Between you and the encroaching dark, the fragile circle of light holds, flickering like a pulse waiting to fail. And then, from the depths where shadow and firelight entwine, a new sound ripples, soft, irregular, barely more than a murmured breath, that carries the slow, deliberate weight of inevitability. You know then that whatever waits in the darkness has begun to draw nearer, its presence folding into the night like a slow turning page, poised to reveal the next unanswered question. The night deepens, swallowing the fragile warmth that clings reluctantly to your skin. The fire breathes faintly beneath your strokes, its pulse a stubborn glow against the icy grip slowly tightening around you. You shift the poker again, coaxing the embers, lifting fragments of charcoal through the gray ash that drifts like ancient dust falling from forgotten memories. Outside the circle of firelight, the forest presses inward, a mass of shadowed trunks and tangled branches that seems almost alive with slow, deliberate hunger. You feel its gaze, cold and patient, weighing against your heartbeat. The ground beneath your boots hums faintly, a rhythm subtle yet steady, like the distant toll of bells carried on a wind that cannot be named. The crackle of fire wavers, sparks spiral upward, flitting briefly, ghosting through the smoke before vanishing into the black canopy. You watch, mesmerized by their slow dance, and for a moment, the night holds a gentle grace, a fragile breath caught between darkness and light. Through the thick glove on your hand, a tether to the moment, however fleeting. A soft murmur rises at the fringes of your hearing, the rustle of leaves, a slow, measured scraping that does not match the careless drag of wind. It moves with intent, deliberate steps threading through the underbrush, stealthy but heavy with purpose. You do not look, cannot afford the distraction. Instead, your senses reach outward, hungry for the faintest hint of movement, the slightest shift in the cold air. Your fingers curl tightly around the poker, the metal cool against your skin, grounding you. A whisper of smoky decay clings to your nostrils, mixed with damp earth and the brittle dryness of dead leaves crushed beneath careful steps. The fire's glow curls softly around you, a fragile shield, flickering and frail, but still burning. Beneath your gaze, the clearing seems to hold its breath, the shadows pooling thicker as the flickering light fights to push back the advancing dark. The trees stand like silent sentinels, their gnarled limbs weaving slow patterns against the storm-muted stars. Your breath shapes the cold air, a gentle fog that curls upward, vanishing into the endless night. Then the warmth flickers, collapses briefly, and your heart catches. The fire stutters like a shuttered eye, spasming between light and nothingness. You pause, hand frozen mid-motion, eyes fixed on the depths, beyond the glow, where shapes hover just out of reach. A chill threads through the air, slipping beneath the skin, a quiet shift, signaling that the forest itself exhales with something heavy and watchful. From the darkness, a slow movement unfolds. The silhouette advances, deliberate and tentative, stepping with cautious certainty beyond the circle's edge. Leaves with careful restraint. The outline is slim, almost spectral, outlined faintly in the fire's amber breath. The pulse of your hands tightens around the poker. The heat seeps faintly through the gloves, a fragile assurance against the coil of tension rising in your chest. Every sound sharpens, the crack of twigs, the scrape of stone sliding low against earth. The forest folds closer, the shadows twisting, weaving a pattern of silent watchfulness. You take a slow, steadying breath, feeling the pulse of the fire rise again beneath your careful stirring. The embers glow deeper red, a quiet heartbeat holding against the dark's long, patient weight. Your eyes never waver from the figure, the mystery lingering in its deliberate approach. A shiver slides across your skin, not from cold, but a keen awareness, like the slow tightening of a thread around your throat. The air thickens, dense with old secrets, folded into damp earth and smoke. Somewhere in the shadowed periphery, the faintest glimmer flickers, a subtle silver trace caught just above the crunch of leaves and the sigh of wind. You lean a little closer to the fire, coaxing its warmth, the glowing coals pulsing in rhythm with the slow stretch of night. The scent of smoke dips into the bitter edge of wet stone and rotting wood, raw, elemental, anchoring you to the moment, suspended between breath and silence. The figure stops, just beyond the light, still enough to blur into the dark, the cloak folding around it like a shadow's second skin. The quiet is heavy now, thick and almost sacred, as if the forest waits with bated breath for what is to come. Then, from the hollow space between the trees, a sound pierces the hush, low, rolling, slow, like the grinding of stone, turning. Ever so slightly, it vibrates through the undergrowth, pulsing beneath the crunch of leaves, with a deliberate weight that settles deep in your bones. Your breath catches, fingers tighten more firmly on the poker as the fire flickers again, casting tremulous light and long, shuddering shadows across the clearing. You feel the moment, stretched taut, the fragile thread of warmth between you, the waiting dark, and the slow night, inexorable approach of something older than the trees themselves. And then, as if the night decides to reveal one last secret before it swallows all, the figure shifts just a fraction, lifting a hand that holds something faintly glowing, a shard of pale light swallowed half in shadow. Your eyes lock on it, heart pounding with a slow, steady rhythm, tethered to the fire's fragile glow. The forest exhales around you, a slow breath of ancient age, as the unseen weight presses closer, folding you into the darkness that begins to move with intent. The night cracks open with the softest of sounds, the hint of a voice stretched across the cold, a single word barely spoken, but carrying the weight of all that waits in the gathering shadows. You remain still, the fragile dance of firelight casting tremulous shapes that stretch and recoil over the rough bark. The glowing coals pulse like a heartbeat beneath your steady hands, a slow thrum that grips the cold with stubborn warmth. Around you, the forest deepens into shadows so thick they seem to breathe, exhaling whispers that curl and fade into the weighty silence. The cloak brushing against your skin shifts slightly in the breeze, the coarse fabric rough and familiar. Each subtle sound, the rustle of dry leaves, the distant creak of bending branches, weaves into the quiet tapestry that surrounds you. Your breath rises in soft clouds, ghostly plumes drifting upward into the dense night, blurring against the smoky haze that clings to every surface. Your fingers curl more firmly around the poker, metal cool but steady, a tether to the moment slipping between shadow and light. You tilt the tool slowly, dragging it through the embers with deliberate care, stirring life beneath the crust of ash. Heat trickles through the glove's thin barrier, a faint pulse that seeps deep into your fingertips. The scent of smoldering wood and earth fills your lungs, thick and pungent, grounding you amid the restless dark. Out beyond the shimmering circle of flame, the forest presses inward, gnarled limbs arching like silent sentinels shrouded in mystery. The air turns heavier, colder, and just beyond reach, watching with a quiet, relentless vigilance. A snap, a brittle fracture somewhere beneath a fallen branch, breaks the stillness. You hold your breath, mindful of the delicate balance between sound and silence. The fire flickers uncertainly, casting long, uneven shadows that shift with mischievous grace. You feel the moment stretch taut, like a thread pulled slowly taut between two worlds, fragile yet unyielding. The cloak at your shoulders shifts again. A whisper barely audible, muted beneath the rustling breath of night. You sense movement, a slow, measured approach, threading through the underbrush with deliberate care. It is neither rush nor retreat, but a patient glide, a rhythm that steps softly, weaving between branches and time. Your gaze lingers at the fringe of light, where darkness breathes thick and dense. Shapes fold into the blackness, blurring and solidifying in the fire's uncertain glow. A slender figure emerges, outlined faintly by the amber breath of embers, its presence quietly displacing the cold, pressing in like a slow tide. You do not turn away, even as your heart tightens with a slow coil of tension. The fire's warmth seeps lazily through your gloves, offering a fragile comfort against the encroaching night. Every breath you take is slow, deliberate, a silent pact to remain steady amid the gathering quiet. With careful precision, the figure extends a hand, revealing a small object cradled in shadow and smoke. A shard of pale light, translucent yet trembling, flickers softly in its grasp, the glow faint, neither threatening nor entirely welcoming. It dangles there, suspended in the fragile air between invitation and caution. Your eyes trace the shifting outlines as the figure pauses, poised like a question hanging on a hesitant breath. The forest leans closer, branches brushing and sighing, carrying echoes of forgotten promises and silent warnings. The earth beneath you hums faintly, an ancient rhythm syncing with the slow pulse of your own rising unease. You inhale softly, fingers tightening one last time around the poker's cool steel, grounding yourself in the ritual of tending embers. The fire crackles low, sparks drifting upward in hesitant spirals, ephemeral dancers caught between the present moment and the promise of oblivion. Their faint glow traces patterns on your skin, painting shadows that flicker and fade like memories slipping through grasping fingers. A sudden breath of wind carries the smoky scent sharper, mingling with the dampness of earth and the brittle decay of leaves. It curls around your neck, a silent caress that chills deeper than the night's cold. The figure's eyes, though veiled in shadow, hold a stillness that beckons, a quiet enigma woven into the fabric of darkness. The ember's glow deepens, suffusing the clearing with a warm pulse, steady and slow. Your thoughts unfurl with the light, threads of hesitant hope curling alongside the relentless weight of shadow. The moment lingers, suspended on the knife edge of revelation and retreat. Then, with the slightest movement, The figure lowers the glowing shard, sending a faint ripple through the smoky air. The light fractures softly, spilling delicate rays that scatter like pale stars caught in a web of night. The forest exhales around you, its breath long and slow, filling the space with a tremulous expectancy. Your gaze shifts toward the edge of the clearing, where darkness pools thicker than before. Something stirs there, an echo of movement slow and deliberate, casting silhouettes that twist and dissolve in the half-light. An unseen presence rises, vast and patient, threading its way from the depths with quiet inevitability. The fire flutters once, casting shadows that dance and shiver wildly before settling again into stillness. You feel the fragile barrier between warmth and cold thicken, the night folding tighter as if in anticipation. Your breath slows, mingling with the faint whisper of leaves and the barely audible scrape of stone. Then, as if summoned by the forest's ancient will, a soft lament drifts toward you, the echo of a voice split thin and stretched between realms, barely more than a sigh carried on the frost-edged wind. It coils around your senses like a slow tide rising, drawing you deeper into the gathering dark. And in that suspended silence, your skin prickles, heart steadying against the slow unfolding mystery. The night's breath presses close, the fragile embers' light flickering with a promise yet to be revealed. You trace the jagged rim of the small clearing once more, feeling the chill of the air deepen as the fire's fragile pulse flickers beneath your touch. The ember's warmth pools softly against your palms, reluctant to surrender to the gathering cold. A slow breath escapes your lips, curling upward in pale spirals that dissolve silently into the dense air, carrying with them a weight of unseen promise. Around you, the forest leans closer, its breath heavy with resin and damp earth, brushing against your skin like a slow, invisible tide. Your fingers tighten their grip on the poker, the cold metal an anchor in this sea of shadow and whispered movement. The amber glow paints soft, wavering patterns on the rough bark nearby, each swell and dip a dance between light and dark, a steady rhythm marked by the fire's uncertain heartbeat. You stir the embers again, slow and cautious, coaxing heated fragments from beneath the gray ash. The rise and fall of heat tingles beat through the worn glove, a delicate tether to life in this ancient expanse. Beyond the circle of firelight, shapes waver and shift, blurred outlines woven from smoke and darkness. Somewhere deep in the underbrush, a faint stirring presses against your senses, sounding like the dragging wish of stone on stone, deliberate and slow. You do not turn. Instead, your eyes sharpen, locked in place, drinking in the flickers at the clearing's edge and the subtle shifting of shadowed branches twisting under unseen weight. A whisper brushes by, a sigh threading through the brittle leaves as the cloak wrapped around your shoulders flutters under the breath of an unseen wind. The scent of rotted wood mingles with smoke and cold dampness, a pungent reminder of what lingers beneath the surface of this frozen night. The fire crackles low, sending slow spirals of gray smoke curling upward like ghostly dancers, their pale forms twisting in stories only the woods remember. Cold presses in at your neck, a faint prickling tracing the bare skin just beneath the fraying edge of the cloak. You raise your hand, rubbing the slow ache back into life, and the tip of your glove brushes ash, gritty and unyielding. The brittle contrast between warmth and chill folds around you, a delicate balance struck between quiet endurance and the heavy weight of waiting. Each breath you take is measured, slow as falling snow settling over the darkened floor. A sudden snap, sharp and brittle, fractures the dense silence, like bone breaking beneath the weight of time. Your heart pulses unevenly, the rhythm now entangled with the slow approach of that deeper, creeping sound. You steady yourself by leaning close to the fire, feeling the rush of heat as the embers pulse beneath the metal. Poker's steady glide. The glow deepens, a tired flame clinging stubbornly to its fragile existence. Eyes flick to the distant shadows, where a figure stirs hesitantly, moving with a ghost's slow grace. The cloak's fabric brushes dry leaves, releasing faint, dry rustles into the still night. Time seems to fold inward, compressing around your sense of waiting. The figure does not rush, nor does it retreat. It moves with a patience born of things older than you can name. Your breath slows, steadying to match the deliberate cadence of the steps just beyond the circle of warmth. The fire's light stretches long fingers into the clearing, enveloping the figure in a hesitant embrace. The air thickens with the scent of wet stone and ash, a layered tapestry weaving between smoke and earth. The moment hangs fragile between what is seen and what hides just beyond the veil. You shift the poker gently, the metal scraping softly against hardened charcoal. The embers pulse in time with your movements, faint and steady, as the figure halts, revealing the faint glimmer of something clasped within pale fingers, an object that catches the hearthlight, fracturing it like a shard of broken stars. The flames flicker, shadows twisting loose to dance at the edges of vision, entwining doubt and wonder. Your eyes lock on that fragment, a silent conversation held between the glow and the closing dark. A whisper rises again, threading through the night air, a breath caught somewhere between a question and an invocation. The forest seems to exhale around you both, the weight of its watchful silence settling deep into your bones. From the perimeter, undulating shadows stretch closer, folding slowly like smoke trailing from distant coals. A deep thrumming permeates the ground, a pulse both steady and immense, as if the earth itself breathes beneath the quiet, a slow awakening brewing in the roots and stone. The temperature dips subtly, the air sharpened by rumor and waiting. You tighten your hold on the poker, the metal cool yet unyielding beneath your fingers. The fire's glow strains against the night, its pulse battling the slow, patient hunger, creeping ever nearer. The figure lifts the shard higher, cradling it as if it were a fragile heart, and in its glow you feel the faintest trace of something new, an unfolding secret written in light more delicate than dawn. The trees lean in closer now, their ancient limbs bending under invisible weight. The thick silence breaks beneath a soft lament that trembles like silk drawn too tight across a hollow frame. The cry is neither despair nor joy, but a weaving of both, pulling you forward even as you stand still. The night holds you suspended, at once tethered to warmth and drawn inexorably toward the uncharted darkness ahead. And then, in the flicker of the fire's final pulse, the shard fractures, scattering shards of pale light like frozen fireflies, slipping quietly beyond grasp, as if the shadow beside you has unfolded a map only stars dare read. The forest exhales a long, slow breath, and in the thickened silence, a single sound rises, a measured, deliberate step from just beyond the glowing edge before everything tilts once more into waiting. You lower the poker gently into the ashes one last time, feeling the heat seep quietly into your worn gloves and, slow, its ancient rhythm settling into a calm that seems almost reluctant, as if reluctant to surrender its stories to silence. The figure in the shadow steps closer, movements measured and without hurry. You do not need the light to read the weight of their presence. The subtle shift in the air, the careful shuffle of fabric against dry leaves. The stillness between you stretches taut, a moment poised, like a breath caught deep in the chest, then released with gentle certainty. There is no threat here, only a patient invitation carved from smoke and shadow. Their hand extends slowly, cradling that shard of pale light, so delicate, so hesitant, as if it might dissolve into mist at any second. You reach out with the poker, nudging the ember beneath it, coaxing the fire to lean just a little closer, to hold tight for what is left to come. The pale fragment catches the firelight, scattering faint rays that weave between the trees, painting ghostly patterns on the tangled roots at your feet. An ancient language spoken through glow and shadow. The forest exhales around you both, a long, steady sigh that carries with it the weight of countless seasons past and memories folded deep into earth and bark. The cold has not vanished, but now it feels softer, tempered by the small warmth held in your hands, than the quiet promise that flickers just beyond sight. You shift your gaze slowly upward, tracing the dense canopy where the stars hide like secrets beneath thick clouds. The smoke curls above you in slow ballets, twisting like whispered lullabies that settle softly, but gentle embrace to the restless night. The faint scent of resin and damp earth fills your lungs, grounding you deeper still in this place where time seems to fold in upon itself. A soft tremble stirs beneath your boots, the echo of the earth's heartbeat entwined with your own. The distant scrape of stone fades into silence, replaced by the hush of leaves stirred by an unseen breeze, carrying with it a quiet that resonates like the end of a long story. The figure steps back, their form blending into the darkness, wrapped in the fire's last glow, leaving the shard glowing faintly on the ashbed, like a promise etched in light. You lean closer to the fire, drawing a slow, deliberate breath, tasting the sharp edge of smoke mingled with the earth's deep scent. The embers respond to your touch, blooming softly, a gentle blaze that seems to pulse with the echoes of all the silent nights before. The warmth climbs your fingers, breathing life back into aching muscles and threading a fragile comfort through the chill heavy against your skin. In this stillness, you feel the threads of the night unwind. The watchers in the woods dissolve into the shadows, their eyes retreating, the weight lifting as the fire steadies its glow, and the forest folds back into a peace earned by vigilance. Your heart slows, the rhythm settling into one of quiet steadiness, as though the world itself leans in, listening to the final notes of a song sung long ago. The crackling fades, becoming a soft murmur, like the hush of waves lapping a forgotten shore. A blanket of silence settles over the clearing, thick and gentle, wrapping you in the kind of calm that seeps deep enough to still even the most restless thoughts. You allow your breath to lengthen, to slow, releasing all tension with it as you sink into the moment's embrace. Around you, the forest darkens gracefully, shadows folding neatly over gnarled roots and twisted branches, as if tucking the earth beneath a quilt of night. The fire's glow softens, becoming a quiet pulse in the vast silence, a heartbeat no longer a fight, but a peaceful rhythm in tune with the ancient woods. You close your eyes briefly, feeling the lingering warmth cradle your fingertips, the faint scent of ash and earth, a familiar comfort. The world shrinks to this fragile point. The fire's glow, the crisp night air, the slow breath of the forest beside you. All the waiting, the watchfulness, the whispers, they drift away on the lightest breeze, leaving only the softness of night's quiet hold. Your thoughts slow, wandering gently to the far-off places you left behind, no longer urgent, but softened by distance and understanding. The figure, the shard, fold into memory, like the last delicate curl of smoke rising, dissolving into the vast, patient sky. The night's story has found its close. As you lift your gaze one last time, the faintest glow of dawn peeks beyond the trees, an unseen hand pulling back the curtain of night, ushering in a promise not of fear, but of gentle renewal. The cold light tumbles over leaves and trunks, painting the world anew, softening the edges of shadow and ash. You release the poker quietly, the metal cool against the earth as the embers settle into a steady, timeless warmth. The forest exhales once more, long and deep, the weight lifting fully now, as if a long-held breath is finally freed. You rise slowly, feeling the ache and relief of a ceaseless vigil fulfilled. Then, with the softest smile tugging at your lips, you turn from the clearing, carrying the warmth within you like a secret flame, and step lightly into the waking wood. Around you, the air hums quietly, a song too gentle for words, but enough to soothe even the weariest soul. The fire's light fades softly behind you, its last flickers lacing the air like whispered goodbye. The night closes gently now, folding you into its vast, star-dotted arms, and as you walk, the whole world seems to hum a slow, tender lullaby, the kind that sinks deep enough to turn exhaustion into peace. And so, the story ends, not with a roar, but with a quiet sigh, not in chaos, but in stillness wrapped in shadow and flame. A final breath, held and released into the soft cradle of dawn. With eyes half closed, you fall toward rest, the woods breathing steady as a heartbeat beside you, carrying you softly into the quiet promise of sleep.